So if you're watching this video, I imagine you probably want to improve your IBS and your gut health. Now you are in the right place because I can show you exactly how you can do that. And in this video, I'm going to explain why I think I am the man to help you do that. My framework, which, there's so much value here that I can't wait to go into. And also an example of a client and other clients that I've helped do that as well. And just before I get into that, well, who am I? My name is Will. If you are new around here and you didn't already guess, I am a health coach and I help people with their gut health and IBS more specifically. Why am I credible? Well, I mean, that's exactly what I did back in 2022 when I had all these issues. Hopefully, you can relate to many of these. I know a lot of you guys do. I mean, the brain fog was crazy, crazy stomach cramps, really bad anxiety, bloating after every meal, always fatigued, always ill. I mean, whenever there was a cold around, I was always going to get it. No muscle gain, mood issues. I mean, name it, I had it. Nutrient deficiencies like folic acid, and you most likely probably do resonate with some of these symptoms as well. And now, I mean, it's 2025 now, but I pretty much have none of these symptoms. And if I do, it's extremely mild, and it's very proud for me to say that. And it's also to give you guys some hope and just show you what a transformation you can make. And not only have I been able to help myself, I've been able to help many tens of other clients do the exact same as well. I have a couple of testimonials on my Instagram. I'll put that in the link below if you do want to watch that. They had, very similar issues. I was able to help, a bunch of messages from clients as well that you can read. There'll be a link in the bio for that as well. And yeah, this is a client that I'm going to go through over in a little bit. So that's why I think you should listen to me. You can make the decision if you would like to or not. Now I'm kind of just going to go straight into it and explain exactly what I do for clients, what you should be doing at home, and pretty much if I had to restart, what I would do. So step one is we have to figure out, we're going to reverse engineer. We're going to figure out what happened. What happened? Were you born with IBS and gut health issues? Probably not. A lot of people say, oh, back in 2021 or wherever it may be, things started getting really bad for me. So I'm like, okay, what happened in 2021? Let's figure it out. And these are some big things that could maybe cause it. Getting COVID is a big one. I can go into more depth in that in another video. Antibiotics, destroying all your gut microbiome, that can cause issues with IBS. Poor lifestyle, diet, toxin exposure. Now, hopefully you can look at this list and maybe make some connections like, oh, I had medications and that's when my symptoms started coming on. And essentially what I'm encouraging you to do is create your timeline. When did things start getting bad? What kind of things were you doing? And also there's the body burden point here as well, which essentially just means that if you're treating your body poorly for so long, it might not be a specific event that maybe caused it, just your body finally gave up. Like if you've been drinking alcohol for like 10 years and you've been fine and then one day it just collapses, that's known as the body burden point. So I would just keep that in mind as well. So whenever I'm working with someone new, the step one is just figuring out what is your timeline? What happened? What went wrong? What have you been doing to actually get these symptoms? Now, what's interesting is IBS is typically diagnosed with just symptoms. It's just symptomology. And the most common ones will be stomach cramping, bloating, and abnormal stools. So that's all IBS is. It's just symptoms. It's just gut health symptoms. So IBS really isn't a proper diagnosis. It's just poor gut health symptoms. So reframe your mind into that. And that's what we're looking at. And all these things can cause those symptoms. Antibiotics, COVID, poor lifestyle diet, toxin exposure, these can all cause IBS symptoms and therefore poor gut health symptoms. So hopefully you're able to recognize one of these as maybe an indication of where something's gone wrong in your life. Now, I'm not using a picture because I haven't got permission, so I don't want to reveal the identity, but let's just call them Sarah. All right, this is our... Oh, my thing decided to freeze. Let's call them Sarah. Now, when Sarah first came to me, she was obviously very lost and like, oh, I don't know what's going on. So we did this. We did the timeline for her and said, when did you start getting gut issues? And she was like, oh, I went on holiday. I was in Morocco and then I came back. It wasn't great there. And then things started to get worse and worse. I was like, okay, what happened in Morocco? And she was, oh, I think I had some poor water or poor food that might have done it. So now I'm thinking, oh, post-infectious IBS, infectious food poisoning, that kind of thing. We can start to build things that would make sense for her. And interestingly enough, she then said, oh, I'm getting some burning in the stomach, which is a big sign of gastritis, by the way. I don't know why I'm trying to write this out, but burning in the stomach, big sign of gastritis. And she went to Morocco, which they're kind of famous for having bad water, and she was having a lot of that. So the next stage is then figuring out what actually is the problem. Well, in terms of Sarah's example, she had an infection from the food and water that she was having on holiday. Very common, by the way. So now we're figuring out what's actually gone wrong. Is it just post-infectious IBS? Is it some sort of toxicity? Is it maybe H. pylori, which was interesting? And she was getting burning in the stomach. Now, burning in the stomach is pretty much gastritis. You don't really need anyone to tell you that. And the leading cause of gastritis is H. pylori. So then I was thinking, oh, maybe is it H. pylori? Which is very common to get from contaminated food and water, because she went on holiday and then started getting the burning. So we can start adding things up, like, oh, this is starting to make sense. And this is a very simple explanation, but I'm hoping it starts to make sense for you. Now, it could be the case in my case where I had loads of antibiotics and then I started getting dysbiosis. Okay, it might be for you, it might be a traumatic event, and it might be nervous system regulation, because you're kind of stuck in this freeze or fight or flight. So you can start to make connections. Maybe you did SSRIs and now your motility and bloating is all over the place. Maybe you've been exposed to like mercury, a lot of mercury, so you're getting liver overload, and that's causing some IBS symptoms as well. So try to kind of match up what you think is going wrong. And I know it's difficult to maybe not know exactly, but try to just think at least maybe what has caused it. Now, there are many pillars when it comes to gut health. Like all these things, if something's wrong with your bacteria, for example, it's going to cause IBS-like symptoms. As we mentioned before, abdominal pain, bloating, those kind of symptoms. IBS is not a real diagnosis, it's just symptoms, all right? And all these things can cause issues with IBS. So for the example for Sarah, we figured out she got the infection of holiday, then we figured out it was H. pylori and gastritis. So then it's like, now what can we do? Well, with gastritis, your gut lining is compromised. So we decided that now all these things are important, but it's important that you decide your priorities. We said that gut lining was very important, and also gut bacteria, because she had dysbiosis. Okay, and then we also worked on all these things. But for example, it wouldn't really make sense to work on mental and emotional health when she wasn't stressed. It was just an infection, right? So there are ones that are more important than others for some people, although I would still encourage you to do all good things for these. So then we decided, based off the knowledge we've now created, we need to create a protocol. Now, H. pylori gastritis is very common, and you can maybe steal this if you are dealing with that. But we decided that step one in this protocol was going to be to stabilize symptoms, and that was with anti-inflammatories, because gastritis is very inflammatory. We decided that on a diet aspect, so I guess diet would be included in this, that we needed to make sure she wasn't having acidic foods, because that can irritate the gut lining with gastritis, which, remember, gastritis is inflammation of the gut lining, which H. pylori can cause. I've done a whole video on that if you want to go watch it. So we worked on a diet, stabilize symptoms, get some things to soothe and coat the gut lining. It's like slippery elm, aloe vera, marshmallow root. These things are going to be amazing. Stabilize. Then we want to actually open up detox pathways. So that would involve, making sure you're sweating, making sure you're going to the toilet at least once a day. So that's motility. Maybe some NAC, which is like a way to increase your glutathione, which is your body's master antioxidant. So just making sure you're ready to kind of detox. Then we did some pylo-purging, which again, if you're more interested in, go to the H. pylori video. But you can start to see how this protocol comes out. And then we did some things to get rid of the H. pylori, which she got from holiday, which again, we didn't do any testing. We just figured out from this framework that made sense. And this is a very simplification of it, but that's essentially what we did. And then we added in some probiotics, so gut bacteria, to kind of replenish the gut bacteria after getting rid of the overgrowth, which is a H. pylori infection, which was with some spore-based probiotics. If you guys are interested, Mega Sporebiotic is the best, in my opinion. Spore-based probiotic, they're going to be far better than most of the random ones you get from the counter, okay? So again, I'm just encouraging you guys to kind of follow this system and just start thinking about, what is it that's causing the issue? What things do I need to focus on? And I'll go into more examples. But I mean, with this client, guys, she got results. When we first started working together, she was an 8 out of 10 pain. And I think I talked to her the other day, and she said 0 out of 10 pain. And it would have taken her 8 months to get a test to tell her that she has gastritis. But all we needed to do was just use common sense and figure out, if she went on holiday, got an infection, that's causing gastritis. We don't need a $2,000 test for us to tell us this. Sometimes you do, but a lot of you guys probably don't, in my opinion. Now, let's take another example. Anton, for example, he had a lot of brain fog, a lot of fatigue, bloating. That was probably mainly from leaky gut. We figured out that he did antibiotics like a couple of years ago, a pretty intense course. We then figured out he had a lot of like leaky gut and dysbiosis. We did a similar thing with like repairing the gut lining with colostrum, butyrate, and that was able to help his fatigue and his inflammation and whatnot. Again, we have Rohan here, who was dealing with some inflammation, a lot of stress. we realized that there was, some nervous system issues, some events that may have happened. We then decided, okay, there is some nervous system dysregulation. Okay, let's focus on mental and emotional health. And then we created a protocol around that as well. Hopefully that makes sense. And I know it's a little bit difficult, and please do ask any questions in the comment section down below. But when it comes to IBS, all we're doing is physical gut healing plus nervous system regulation. That's all we're doing. So we're doing some stuff for the physical, which is the supplement side and the diet side, and also nervous system regulation. And if you combine these two elements, you'll be smashing it. You'll be smashing it. I'm just going to go over kind of nervous system. I know a lot of people were asking about nervous system a little bit. I was just making sure there wasn't anything that I missed. And that's the framework which I do. Of course, there's a bunch more questions that probably need to be asked, but these are the main things you need to look after. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've changed my diet and I'm still feeling bad. Well, yeah, if you have an infection that caused dysbiosis, then you need to focus on this. It doesn't matter how clean you're eating. It matters about if you've got leaky gut and gut bacteria. And if you're really stressed and got, stuck in fight or flight, then we need to do all this holistically. And that's what I mean when I talk about the holistic. I think I forgot to do this, but basically my value proposition to you guys is I can significantly improve IBS in 12 weeks with my holistic healing using the essential pillar framework. And that's essentially what this is. All right. And this is very effective and very simple for most people. I just want to talk about nervous system regulation because I know a lot of you guys were asking. Let's make this as simple as possible, right? There is something called the dual dysregulation model. I actually came up with this myself, but there's two ways in which the body can become dysregulated. One would be trauma-based dysregulation, and one would be this kind of seesaw. Where's my pen gone? This seesaw, which essentially you can look at it as like, where's my pen? Oh, okay, I'm doing it wrong. There's lifestyle-induced dysregulation and there's trauma-induced regulation. Lifestyle could be because you're having loads of caffeine and doing HIIT workouts and listening to loud music and really stressed at your job. You've got things going on in your own personal life and you're doom scrolling on TikTok. And that's going to be an example of lifestyle dysregulation because you're doing so much what we call sympathetic activation and you're doing no parasympathetic activation. You're not going outside, you're not nature walks, you're not meditating, you're not deep breathing, you're not essentially being conscious. So you can see on the scale, like you're going to be so heavily towards sympathetic activation, which is almost like your fight or flight, and that's going to cause dysregulation itself. And that's going to cause issues with your gut health as well, because you're going to have sympathetic dominance. That's going to cause vagus nerve dysregulation, as we mentioned. And then, of course, that's really important when it comes to your actual gut function, because you need to be in rest and digest, not in fight or flight, which is where this parasympathetic is not actually activated enough. When it comes to trauma-based dysregulation, this is essentially what it is. As human beings, we're very bad at getting out of trauma dysregulation because we just don't know how to do it. So essentially, this might be you. There's a stressful event in your life. There was some sort of stress response like fear. You weren't in a safe position to actually express that. So you then get this suppression of emotion, and that leads to this dysregulation. And if that is you, then I'm going to show you, actually, I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight of what I tell people. But if that is the trauma-based dysregulation, then we just need to kind of complete the trauma loop. We actually need to go back to the stressful event using something called semantic experiencing, and that can help us actually express the emotion instead of suppress the emotion, and that can help us get us dysregulation. I really hope you guys are understanding. I don't want to just throw loads of information and it just be too complicated. I want to make it really easy. We're back up here. I've lost it, guys. Oh, it's up here. So follow this framework. If you have dysregulation, I'm just talking about it because a lot of people have asked. Maybe identify if it's lifestyle or if it's stress induced. Sometimes it's both. And what's interesting as well is you can actually get this thing called HPA dysfunction. And HPA stands for your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenals. It essentially is like your system's way of releasing stress hormones. So your hypothalamus is a part in the brain that regulates homeostasis, which is like keeping you normal, and also stress and hormones as well. So once it detects stress in the brain and emotion, it's going to release into the pituitary and into your adrenals. Your adrenals is what produces cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. Okay. Now, that kind of turns on and off based on your situation. But if you've been in dysregulation for so long, the on-off switch for that doesn't work anymore. So you're just constantly on. Then it's constantly producing cortisol in your body, which just means you're constantly stressed. And it's like you then develop chronic stress. And that's not a good place to be when it comes to gut health issues and just general life. So we need to figure out how we can fix that. Now, I like to put it in an example of like central heating in your house. I assume you have like timings in your house where the heating comes on at 2, comes off at 4, it then comes back on at 6, and then turns off at 8. That's how your HPA function works. It turns on when it needs to. It's almost like an automatic thing. But imagine if your central heating like panel broke and now you have to do it manually. You manually have to turn on the switches. That's kind of what's going on with this HPA dysfunction. It no longer works off automatic. It's now manual, but the switch, it's like the heating's constantly on. The heating's constantly on and you have to go in and turn the switch off to turn it off instead of it automatically going off. That's what we have to do for our dysfunction and our cortisol production because it's constantly on. And we need the tools to figure out how do we turn it off. And there's many ways that we can do that. Again, breath work to actually activate the vagus nerve, semantic tracking, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, which is semantic experiencing, hot cold therapy, sunlight, circadian rhythm, a lot of lifestyle stuff, maybe stepping away from toxic environments as well. That goes a little bit deeper, and I could do a whole video on that. It's just getting a lot. So let me know what you want. And obviously, then if you're in chronic stress, you're not producing enzymes, your motility slows. You're not going to produce stomach acid. Your food's going to ferment, sit, cause gas. Like hopefully, you can see how all these things are linking up, right? So that's helpful for that. And then if you figured out that lifestyle is really geared towards fight or flight activities, one thing that you could start doing is remove caffeine or hit workouts, and add in nature walks and meditation, breath work, having more just time alone without the phone. That would maybe get you to more of a balance and help you achieve regulation, and then you can get into a rest and digest state, and then you won't have gut issues essentially. So that's the 4-step protocol. Goes into a little bit depth about nervous system. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully this opens your eyes and like, oh, I did PPIs, or I had COVID, or I had antibiotics, and you can start to gear these towards each other. And then just start working on these pillars, maybe prioritize them, come up with a protocol that would help you. And if you guys need support in that, I mean, that's exactly what I do. If you want to be coached, you want me to actually work you through this and give you a protocol for you, then that's exactly what I do. So you can go to the top link in the bio. You can watch a little bit more about me, a bit more about how the process works, and you can book a free discovery call, which is essentially where we hop on a call. We just talk about your situation. We can maybe identify some of the starting things, see where you're at, and if you're a good fit for coaching, then we can obviously get started on that right away if that's something that you're interested in. But that's pretty much it, guys. It's actually not that difficult. We just have to. I understand that you guys are like, oh, how do I fix stomach acid? Lemon water, ACV, betaine HCl. How do I fix gut lining? Cypriot elm, colostrum, butyrate. How do I do motility? Well, diet and hydration, but also bowel stimulants and nervous system regulation. Gut bacteria, you could use Saccharomyces boulardii for yeast. You could use spore-based probiotics. You need to do some antimicrobials if you have H. pylori, candida, that kind of thing. Diet, nutrition, animal-based, low lectins is my favorite. Enzymes you probably don't need unless you have gastritis. Bile production, just do some good stuff for the liver. So the best herbs would be dandelion and milk thistle. Hydration, drink enough water and use electrolytes like Celtic salt. Emotional and mental health, we kind of talked over here, but obviously it goes a lot deeper. Lifestyle foundations, making you're sleeping enough, going outside and seeing friends, being social, that basic stuff. Detoxing would be binders, oxygen, oxy powder, maybe some intense enzymes to get rid of mucoid plaque. And I know that sounds a lot, but I'm just trying to prove to you that's like if you were thinking about what do I do for this, then I've just told you. And then diet, you would remove seed oils, gluten, high lactose dairy, refined sugar, and alcohol. That's what you do. Cool. Hope that makes sense, guys. Any other questions, let me know. But until next time.